Welcome back to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck, and today we are in Connersville, Indiana, here at the Whitewater Valley Railroad, and I am joined by John Hillman. John, thank you for joining us today.
You're quite welcome.
John, tell us how the Whitewater Valley Railroad came into existence.
Well, we go clear back to the canal era, when the Whitewater Canal was built. And the canal was never profitable, and it had a lot of damage from the river because it followed the Whitewater River most of the way. And finally it went belly up, and it was bought by a gentleman named Henry C. Lord, and he wanted to build a railroad. And he bought the railroad, and they proceeded to build the railroad on the towpath of the Whitewater Canal. It was really convenient. It saved them a lot of money because it was always level, more or less. And so over the years, the railroad changed hands several times. It merged, and eventually it became owned by the Penn Central Railroad. There were some others in between, but Penn Central was the owner when we came around.
Gotcha.
Well, there was no business on this segment, so they wanted to give it up. And there were 5 businessmen here in Connersville that had the idea, well, let's start a tourist railroad. We could go to Metamore, the restored canal town. It was kind of like a perfect fit. So they got together with Penn Central and worked out a lease, a 1-year lease. Well, this was in 1972.
Okay.
They spent all of 1973 gaining equipment, fixing the track, and getting everything ready. And in 1974, we ran our first trains. And this went on for several years. And it was a big success at first because it was new to the area, and we had really, really good crowds. Well, Penn Central finally wanted to get out of the railroad business because they were in bankruptcy, and they wanted to sell the railroad to us.
Right.
Well, of course, we wanted to buy it because they were not going to renew the lease. We didn't have much choice. But the price they wanted was astronomical.
Okay.
You know, they thought they had a gold mine here with us wanting to buy it. But we couldn't afford it. So we went to the state of Indiana, and the state supported us, but not financially. So our next step was we went to court and sued them over the assessed value of the railroad, and we won. The little guy beat the big guy.
Well, that's a little engine that could story if ever I heard one. That's awesome.
So that gave us a lot of incentive to start putting more money and more effort into the railroad. It was ours. So this went on for several years, and back in the beginning when we had steam engines, and that was a big draw. But after a while, it got too expensive, and they changed the laws and the rules, so we became all diesel. But our equipment is all, I guess you could say, heritage equipment. Most of the coaches are like from the 30s, early 30s, and the locomotives are from the 50s. But we have quite a collection of equipment. Now, over the years, we started to have special events. People's attitudes and interests changed, so we started, and we would have Christmas trains at Christmas time, go to Metamore. They were a big success. And then along come Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh. Oh, way to play on that theme.
We convinced ourselves we needed to try it, and we did for 1 year, and it worked out well.
Yeah.
And then we had a 2-year gap, I believe it was 2 years. And then we went back into it, and my gosh, it just went crazy.
Did it?
Because that's when Thomas was so popular. I mean, he's still popular.
I was going to say, I like him still. And
but we really drew the crowds. And then we started getting into other events like
Polar Express? Is
Polar
that something?
Express.
Yes, very cool.
You can sell anything at Christmas time.
Yes, you can. You can sell the best memories ever. And this is perfect. This is perfect for that.
Well, we moved into this building in the year 2000. The city owns this building. They built it for us, and it works out really, really good. It's right in the middle of downtown. It has good facilities.
Yeah, it wasn't modeled after a former depot or anything like that from the area, no? Okay.
No, this site was the site of the freight house. Across the street was the original passenger depot, and down the center was the canal. So the canal split the 2 depots. Well, after the canal stopped using it for hydraulic power, they filled the street in, so this is the only thing that's in the area right now, reminiscent of the railroad.
Gotcha. What are some of the other cool theme nights? Because I imagine kids like lose their minds when they come here, and it's got it's got to be another time that they're getting to experience.
Well, it's amazing, even with the adults, how many it's their first train ride. Even
really?
Adults.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
And,
yeah, you're right.
The kids are just kind of odd. It's our main trip when we go to Metamore and back is like a 5-hour round trip. 2 hours of that is spent in Metamore. Mm-hmm. And the coaches are open-winded. That means that, they're open to the air. You're not in a sealed cocoon.
That's awesome.
But
John, we are sitting in this great railroad depot, the museum. How is all of this run on, it's a nonprofit, how's it all run on just volunteers?
Well, from the very beginning, it's been a nonprofit. It's a 501c3.
Okay.
Which basically means we pay no income tax, no property tax, and that is a tremendous advantage. Yeah. And we're run by volunteers, and our volunteers come from all over, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. Some come once a week, some once a month. It's up to them how often they want to come and work. Now in the spring, we have a training class for new people. We've just finished those not too long ago. We have them each year for 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
And there's no obligation. You can come, take the classes, and walk away and never come back. But we hope that you stick around and volunteer and be part of the railroad. And it's been working very well that way. We have young and old, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter what your interests are. You don't even have to like trains.
Right.
Because there's people who like to do mechanical work, they like to do restoration work and so forth.
Over the past 15 years, you guys have been fortunate enough to have 2 historic railroad structures. Can you talk about that?
Well, we have a separate, what we call our museum site. Mm-hmm. And we have 2 structures down there. One is the Rushville Depot, which was moved from Rushville, Indiana. Yep. And the other is the Dearborn Tower, which came from Lawrenceburg, Indiana. When they expanded the casino down there, they had to get rid of the tower, and we were fortunate enough to get a grant. And we actually got a grant for both of these to help move. And they were moved, and they were in pretty rough shape when we got them. But we have a gentleman and a few helpers that restored it to like new condition. And it's part of a small site down there. We have some other items too that, like I said, we call it our museum site.
All right.
And it's open to the public too, but mainly by appointment.
Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. John, in the last several years, you've added a new shop building to your organization. So how has that helped out?
Well, with the railroad, there's a lot of mechanical work that needs to be done. And for years and years, it had to be done outside. Mm-hmm. Whether it was hot, whether it was rainy or cold. And it was always our dream to build a shop. And this took quite a while to get around to because it was very expensive. Yeah. Well, we had a steam locomotive that we were not going to use, and we sold it back to the original owners. And that was the seed money to get the shop started. We went to the bank, got a loan, and we built this really nice facility. That's all the mechanical work can be inside now, and it's set up for railroad repairs, and it's been a blessing. It's something we dreamed about for years and years, and it became a reality.
And that obviously is just done everything for efficiency. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And so I've walked through the gift shop a little bit. That is quite the gift shop you wouldn't imagine it, but I'll tell you, there are some treasures in there. I'm thinking about walking away with a pocket watch. I'll tell you, it's really nice. Talk about the gift shop.
Well, I'm the gift shop manager.
Oh, well, I just gave you quite the compliment, didn't I?
Well, I've worked for Kroger's for 41 years, and retail is in my blood.
I guess so.
And I have a ball with the gift shop. I just spend a lot of time on it myself.
Listen, from a woman's point of view here, it is aesthetically done very, very well. I can tell Kroger had you trained right, sir. Yeah, it's a really nice shop. How long has that been here since the building?
Okay. This building opened in the year 2000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been there since
19 years. The depot is open 7 days a week during our season, May through December. And of course, the gift shop will be open too. And we have people stop in during the week, even though we're not running trains, we have billboards up on I-70, and people see, and they come down here, and then they come back later on.
Nice.
So,
get a train ride.
Yep.
Dinner down there. Now, where does the train goes to?
The train to dinner is one of our popular items.
Yeah.
And it's on the first and third Friday each month.
Okay.
And it goes to Laurel.
Oh, that goes to Laurel. Okay.
It's to the Laurel Hotel. It used to be a hotel back in the canal area. It was a hotel,
Okay.
but now it's just a restaurant. And you go down to the restaurant. You just walk approximately a half a block to the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
You get your meal, and then you come back. So you get the meal, the train ride, all the tax, the tip, everything in one price.
Oh, awesome.
And you make the menu out ahead of time, so when you get there, the meal is ready. And it's very popular.
I can see why people come from Louisville and Chicago and obviously Cincinnati and some of these bigger cities we talk. I can see why people come from all over to get to experience that for sure.
Well, there's not many places you can get a train ride like ours, because it's very scenic. You know, like I said, we follow the river a lot.
Yep.
And you can see remnants of the old canal locks. It's all about history. That's what we are.
Love that. John, you have a diesel locomotive that's very special. Can you elaborate on that?
Our very first locomotive that we bought when we started was a Lima Hamilton engine. And this engine worked in Cincinnati in the coach yards down at Cincinnati Union Terminal. It was built in Lima, Ohio in 1951 by the Lima Corporation. Lima built steam locomotives. Well, when the railroads transitioned from steam to diesel, they were in big trouble. So they tried to get into the diesel business. They didn't do very well, so they eventually got out of the locomotive business altogether. We use this engine just about every weekend, and it's the only Lima Hamilton locomotive in the United States that runs.
Really?
And
that is special.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
And we've overhauled it, and we've got parts, and we hope to keep it going. On the Lima Hamilton locomotives, the engines, the prime mover we call it, was built in Hamilton, Ohio. So Hamilton's not far from here. And then Lima was in Lima, Ohio. So Lima bought their engines from Hamilton, and that's why they call it Lima Hamilton.
Oh, good to know. And I'm an Ohio girl, so I really love that. Now, I understand not too many were made, but only a couple have survived. And you guys have like most of them, don't you?
Right, we have 3. One's used for parts, one's in the process of restoration, so then we would have 2. But we've got so many parts. They came from Armco Steel over in Middletown, Ohio.
Okay.
They donated them to us.
Wow.
And there was no charge, of course, and they donated all the parts because they were obsolete.
Right.
And that's why they gave them up. And we had some members that worked over there at the steel works, and they got the deal, so it's worked out good.
I would say it has. Thank you for watching another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck. Today we're in Connersville, Indiana, here at the Whitewater Valley Railroad. And John Hillman, thank you again for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, and I hope you stop back and see us again.
Oh, absolutely. This is worth the trip. And remember, travel slowly and stop often. Bye for now.